The Hot Seat on BBC Radio Sheffield.
Godfrey Bloom, thanks very much for coming in for the Hot Seat. Have you had a good week?
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yes, it's not been a bad week for UKIP. We've been fighting for 15 years to get agreement to a referendum whether we should be in or out of the European Union. And at least the concept has been agreed now by the Prime Minister, although, of course, before the 2010 election, he did suggest that he would hold a referendum on the Treaty of Lisbon, and then he hadn't been in power for more than 2 weeks when he waved it away and said he didn't think it was a good idea after all. So the question is, do we believe him? Well, probably not, but at least the concept's been agreed.
Right, you don't feel in some way that because he's done that, or any hope you'd got as a party of getting the votes from all those disillusioned Tories has disappeared at one shot, and I think the image is they've shot your fox.
Well, no, indeed they haven't. In fact, it's funny you should say that, because it's rather a London perception that we take disaffected Tory voters, because we have a huge vote up here. I was elected on what you might argue was old Labour. We came top in Hull, Grimsby in 2009 in the elections, Rotherham, we did very well only just recently in by-election. So we get an awful lot of Labour votes, and of course what people are forgetting is that the Labour leader, Ed Miliband, has ruled out at the moment a referendum in or out. So no, nobody's shot our fox. I don't think perhaps suggesting we have a referendum if you vote Conservative in 2 years' time, 2 years after that, has actually shot our fox. In fact, this is where the battle really starts, to demonstrate to the people just what a corrupt and expensive piece of nonsense the European Union is.
Here we are, in the Hot Seat, Godfrey Bloom. On the phone, Michael in Broomhall with the first of the questions. Michael, what do you want to say to Godfrey Bloom?
Erstmal guten Morgen, Herr Bloom. Wie geht es dir heute?
Guten Morgen.
Wie geht's?
Ja.
Ja, was?
Michael, why have you gone into German, if that's what it is?
Okay, I'll stick with English.
Why have you gone into German, though?
Well, just to see how culturally enlightened he was to start with. The question I'd like to ask is, I'd like to know what cultural and socio-economic advantages he thinks we gain by leaving the EU, and how it would raise our quality of life.
Thank you. That's the question in English. Godfrey Bloom.
I think it would be a great advantage to us, because at the moment...
What, culturally, economically or social?
Oh, all three.
Okay, name some.
Right, well, economically, we would save the £40 million a day... a day that we send to the European Union. We don't know where it goes. The accounts haven't been signed off for 18 years. So that would be an immediate saving of £40 million.
Right, well, let me stop you there. What about tariffs, Mr. Bloom?
I'm sorry?
What about tariffs on our exports? 15% on all our exports going to the EU. What about that? How do you think that would give us an economic advantage?
No, look, I'm a financial economist by profession, came into politics relatively late in life.
Okay, so there are no tariffs from other... our imports from outside the EU, then? Are you telling me that?
There are tariffs from outside the EU, which we would like to get rid of by negotiating free trade agreements with the rest of the world. You made the point for me very well. Thank you for that. Yes, there are tariffs. You want to import shoes from outside the European Union, you'll find a tariff of 17%. We could negotiate that away if we had our own seat at the World Trade Organization. Thank you so much for making that point.
Michael.
Belgium than we do with China. Let's get that straight to begin with. So everything we sent to Belgium would be subject to a 17.5% tariff, wouldn't it?
No, of course not. We're net importers from the European Union. A free trade agreement. 38 countries in the world have a free trade agreement with the European Union. We could quite easily be one of them. Turkey has a completely free trade agreement. So does Mexico. So does Norway, Switzerland. So to suggest that we would have tariffs if we left the European Union is economically illiterate.
Michael.
No, within the European Union, I said. I didn't say out of the European Union.
Well,
now, listen.
Michael, just let me clarify the rules of this. I shall put the fader down, Michael, when you've asked the question, so we can hear what Godfrey Bloom says. Then I'll raise the fader again, and then you can speak again. Michael.
Right, okay. Tell me how it would raise our quality of life.
Well, it would give us more money. We'd keep more money at home. We would have less rules and regulations. Did you know, Michael, that we've had more law passed since 1999 to the current time than we had passed from the Bill of Rights in 1688 to 1999? So we're being swamped with laws and regulations which dominate every aspect of our life, and people are fed up with it.
Michael.
Okay, we're guaranteed 20 days holiday here plus stats because of European Union. This country's laws didn't give us that, did they?
Look, that's exactly the sort of point that I'm making. The amount of holiday that you are entitled to should be a matter between you and your employer and your contract. It shouldn't be anything to do with foreign politicians sitting in Brussels talking a lot of nonsense who've never had a real job in their lives.
Michael. Weeks holiday a year.
Say it again, Michael.
We'd be going back to 2 weeks holiday a year instead of 20 days.
No, we wouldn't.
Because, do you really think our employees are going to give us more holidays if we come out of the EU? They'll give us less.
Well, I think if you're a good worker and it's a good company and an enlightened employer, yes, of course they would, but it's not the business of politicians to tell employers how much leave that they give an employee. That is a sort of legislation, micro-legislation, which has dragged the country down.
Well, nonsense. Listen, OK, let's talk about quality of life. There are more outdoor swimming pools in Berlin alone than the whole of the UK. Would we get any more outdoor swimming pools to go enjoy summer's days? Let's stick with quality of life. Do you think we'll have more disposable income by coming out of the EU?
Right, Michael, I'm going to make that the last question.
Well, let me just pick up on the last point, talking about open-air swimming pools. I'm sitting here with Rony looking out of the window. I don't think many people would be utilising an open-air swimming pool just at the moment. And the other point is, would we improve our quality of life? Yes, we would. My experience when I speak to people is they just want to be left alone to get on with their own jobs and their own lives. They don't want the interference from Brussels and politicians, even in Westminster,
right, Michael,
Whitehall or the Town Hall.
Michael, your final word on this. You're very cross about this, aren't you? Very cross with UKIP?
I'm very cross because UKIP is an extreme right-wing organisation. I'm from the left of the political spectrum.
Is that why you started him talking German to him?
Yeah, but I don't think he's a very culturally enlightened individual, to tell you the truth.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. We're going to move on. If you've got questions to ask Godfrey Bloom, he's in the studio. He's UKIP MEP, 01142799699813333 with the word Sheffield. Chris is in Chapeltown. Here's a question from Chris.
Good morning, Mr. Bloom.
Good morning.
Is it the intention of UKIP to be involved in local politics at a parish or a city council level? And if so, will you follow a similar philosophy to the Liberal Democrats in Sheffield, who have tried to work at a ward or community level to address the real needs, aspirations and fears without the interference of political dogma?
Thank you, Chris. Godfrey Bloom.
Yes, indeed. I think that's a very good and well-made point. Yes, we do. One of the UKIP principles is that we need to get back to real localism, not just token localism. And I find all over, and of course my patch is entire Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire, I find one of the things that disappoints and frustrates people most is the fact that the local people aren't properly listened to. And if I may very quickly give you an example of that, Chris. Let's take Fraysthorpe, which is a wonderful scenic part of the world, which is painted by, as we all know, David Hockney with those beautiful pictures. They're now going to put 9 400-foot high wind turbines on it, desecrating the landscape. Now, the parish council, the district council, the county council, the local MP, and me representing the European Union side, all were against it. Every single tier of local government and national government were against it. Yet it was overturned by a man from an inspector who lives in Bristol, a man called Barton, and people are beginning to say, what's the point in democracy? What's the point of all this if we're going to be overridden by a faceless, unelected bureaucrat in Bristol? And so I take your point, Chris, absolutely. Let's have serious localism, and one of the things that we want in UKIP is for these sort of things to be decided by local referendum, these matters, so that real local people can make these decisions. They're not made in Whitehall, they're not made in Brussels, and indeed they're not even made in a town hall maybe 20 miles away.
Right, let me bring Chris back in again. You asked the link there between, like the Liberal Democrats do in local government. Chris, is that because you're a Liberal Democrat thinking of switching across to UKIP or something like that?
Not at all, no. It's just that Sheffield has traditionally for a long time been a sort of Stalinistic Labour-controlled, and often the views of real people have been discounted.
And do you think you will vote UKIP then? Is that a possibility for you?
Idea. That's no idea at all.
Right, thanks very much. This is the question coming from Angela. Thanks, Chris. Can your guest tell us in 1 minute what UKIP stand for, and if we had a UKIP government, what would we expect? The clock's ticking now. Godfrey Bloom.
Right, OK, I can tell you, for the first thing we believe in is self-government. We believe that the country should be governed, as it has done traditionally for 1,000 years, by by its own people, by its elected representatives in Westminster. We believe that our final court of appeal should be the House of Lords and not the European Court in Strasbourg. So we believe primarily in self-government. We're also a libertarian party. We don't believe that people should interfere with your lives at every micro level. So, for example, we believe that it isn't anything to do with government, whether there's sugar in your Cocoa Pops. If you want a cigarette with your pint of bitter, that should be up to your landlord of your local pub, not a politician. So what we're saying is self-government, free government, flat tax, low tax, and I would argue that's most people that I meet in the pub and the rugby club, that's what they want too.
And that's 55 seconds, Andrew. You nearly got your money's worth there. You were described by our opening call as being an extreme right-wing party. Where are you on the right-left business?
Well, it's interesting that pops up from time to time, but I don't actually believe that these labels work anymore.
They've done since 1789, haven't they?
They have, but I think they're passé. You're quite right. It comes from the old French Revolution, and it's. I think they're passé. I think it's now a question of two classes, not left and right. That is the political class and ordinary people. And I think one of the problems that we have are there is too much of a disconnect now with politicians
like you,
ordinary people.
Yes, ordinary people like me.
Yes, absolutely.
What does UKIP stand, says the text, on the cuts, especially around the recent announcement of the closure of Stocksbridge Leisure Centre? What would UKIP do about Stocksbridge Leisure Centre?
Well, I know there's a bit of a battle going on between Stocksbridge Leisure Centre and the Town Hall, and I understand that point, but what I would argue is that would just come in with our local referendums. The people of Stocksbridge should be able to say how the money is spent in Stocksbridge. It shouldn't come from 15 miles away at the Town Hall in Sheffield.
Godfrey Bloom MEP is my guest in the hot seat today. What question have you got for him? 0114 279 6699 81333. When you text, I've got loads more texts to go, loads more questions to ask. But what do you want to ask the MEP, Godfrey Bloom, UKIP man, in the studio now till 12. This is free on BBC Radio Sheffield. We were in the hot seat, or Godfrey Bloom MEP's in the hot seat. He's the UKIP man from round here. He's in the hot seat taking your calls. 81333. When you text, start it with Sheffield. 0114 279 6699. When you phone. A question that's come from Tony. It simply says this: what is UKIP policy on the HS2 rail, and does Mr Bloom support the South Yorkshire tram train project? It comes from Tony. Godfrey Bloom.
Well, of course, we're talking, or this government's talking about the Birmingham link, I think, is the basis of this question, which I think is going to cost over £1 billion. And I really cannot see the point in the government, which is strapped for cash with the biggest national debt that we've had in our history, spending £1 billion so a Brummie businessman can get back to Birmingham 10 minutes earlier. I've never heard so much nonsense in my life. So the answer is no, it's complete and total nonsense.
And the South Yorkshire tram train project?
I have to say that I don't know much about the South Yorkshire tram train situation, but I do know that very often these things turn out to be extremely expensive, and you end up watching things go by which are empty. But I don't know about this enough.
Thank you. Mary's in Mexborough. Your question to Godfrey Bloom, please, Mary.
Oh, good morning, Mr Bloom.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to ask you, and I hope you don't think I'm being too facetious, but this 400 million plus that we're paying every day per day at the moment to the European Parliament, if we haven't got it, how can we pay it? Are these new rules for bailiffs not coming to knock at your door? I'm speaking about the door of Westminster. If we can't pay, are they new rules for bailiffs coming in to make sure that the European lot aren't coming to knock at the door because we can't spend the 400 million plus per day because we haven't got it?
Mary, thank you. Godfrey Bloom.
Well, you've made a very excellent point, if I may say so, Mary. Our membership is £12 billion odd pounds a year of membership of the European Union, which is a significant sum. And, of course, how do we pay that when we're broke? Well, the answer is, of course, that we have to borrow it. and we actually borrow it. So we have the extraordinary situation at the moment, quite extraordinary situation, where we are borrowing money to send to the European Union. And of course, the servicing of the debt is very expensive. 18 pence in every pound that the government spends goes on servicing debt. So we're actually landing our children and our grandchildren with this burden of
Let
debt.
me interrupt, Mary. Is this the question you're asking being answered?
Well, I'm agreeing with Godfrey. It is Godfrey, Mr.
It
Bloom.
is indeed, yeah.
You see, I come out of the top drawer, Mr. Bloom, like you, and I'm going to again. I'm for coming out. Yes, I'm for negotiating, and I really am very hopeful now, because at my age, I hope something will be sorted before I.
And Mary, do you think you'll vote UKIP?
I have voted UKIP in the last but let me just give you a little. Try not to talk about shooting foxes, please, Mr. And passe and all that. As I say, I come out the top drawer, love. But those.
Is this aimed at me or Mr. Bloom?
Mr. Bloom, they get up people's noses.
OK, fair enough, that's it. Thank you. I'll move on. It's me who said the foxy bit and him who spoke German, and I can speak a bit of French. But thanks ever so much, Mary. It's BBC Radio Sheffield. What's your question, folks? What do you want me to ask? What do you want to get asked of Godfrey Bloom, MEP UKIP? He's having an easy ride so far.
Rony Robinson, BBC Radio Sheffield.
Godfrey Bloom, MEP, UKIP man in the studio in the hot seat with me now, taking your questions and mine as well. Godfrey Bloom, how much do you get paid as an MEP?
Well, I get paid the same as an MP from Westminster. That's something I chose to do. I think it would be unreasonable to go and give them the abuse that I do and take their money. So I opted to be paid by the Home Office the same as any Westminster MP.
60-odd grand a year?
Something like that.
How often are you in Europe?
I go to the Strasbourg plenaries, which is where all the voting takes place once a month. And the Brussels committee work and speeches and various other things, other work that I do, Brussels probably twice a month.
So 3 times a month for your work as an MEP? You're not much value for money, are you?
No, I do 1 week in Strasbourg, and I do 2 visits, which probably take 2 or 3 days in Brussels a month. And the rest, I do an awful lot of speeches. I speak at the Chamber of Commerce, universities. I'm speaking at St Andrews University, Durham University, Edinburgh University, York University, I think, all in the next few weeks. But so I do a lot of constituency work.
Yes, I was going to ask. I mean, you're voted in by voters from round here to give speeches to universities. That does seem an odd unvalue for money for a party that is so concerned about it.
No, I wasn't voted in for that. I was voted in to tell people what is going on in Europe, what is going on in the European Union, and how they're governed, and what goes on in Brussels. And I do that by speaking in the county.
Weren't you voted in to be a member of the European Parliament?
Yes, but my job is to actually come and give the information that people want. Most people, say, I don't really know much about the European Union. I don't know whether we ought to have a referendum because I don't understand it. My job is to get people to understand it a lot more, and that's my mission, that's my role.
I spent quite a lot of my, I'd laughingly call research time last night, looking around the internet, looking at YouTube, watching, as it were, the backstory of Godfrey Bloom where I could. I came across some astonishing sequences. One of the assemblies, I don't know the details, you do, where you are shouted down and eventually taken out, really, during the course of a conversation because they are so offended by what you've said. And one in which, how do I put this, you seem to me to be drunk. Are either of those things true?
No, I don't quite. I can tell you about the being thrown out. I was thrown out of the European Parliament because Martin Schulz was giving his normal, fairly National Socialist speech, which is about
I think that's why you were thrown out for saying that, wasn't it?
Well, it's funny, wasn't it? Because your speaker first thing this morning started speaking German.
That's what I thought he was referring to.
Ah, well, I thought he might be, actually, but it seems that he wasn't. And all I did was translate that speech into what the man was actually saying, which was one people, one leader, one political dynamic, one anthem, so on and so forth. That was his speech. And the point that I made, which was mistranslated as shouting Nazi slogans, I didn't. What I actually said was, if you translate that, it translates as Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. And I said, we've heard that before, and that's not something the British people want.
And you were told to leave and you didn't, and they withdrew.
It was just before a vote. I'm democratically elected by the people of Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire to represent them in the chamber. And the person I said this to, Martin Schulz, who's now the president, his behaviour has been far worse than that. He calls people insane, fascists, and the lot. So his behaviour is always in the European Union. Let me tell you, Rony, there is one rule for them and there's another rule for us.
And I would ask listeners to look up that and make your own judgment on it. As a person who presumably pays some of the wages of MEPs, I was shocked by that, not only by your behaviour, but by the rest of it as well. I thought everybody came out of it dismally. But what about the other suggestion I make about the possibility you were drunk while giving a speech there?
Let's see, I'm just trying to think.
You were wearing a yellow suit.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yes, now let's just see, just let me think. That was on financial matters, I think, and Dan Hannan, the Conservative MP, suggested that my speech was a very good speech, notwithstanding that I had lunched rather well. I had lunched rather well, I think, that day, but drunk? No, I don't think so. I don't think. I'd had a couple of pints, but I wasn't drunk.
I thought I read somewhere you've been drinking and taking prescription pills, and that had made you...
Oh, that was a different occasion. That was a different occasion, completely different.
So it's happened more than once, has it?
Twice, I think, in 8 years. Not bad, really, is it?
Godfrey Bloom, MEP UKIP man. Let's take a call from David in Wath. David, hello.
Hello, Rony.
Your question to Godfrey Bloom.
Right, we're all more than aware of the condition in this country, unemployment, debt, cut on this, cut on that, cut on the other. Now, I understand later this year the Romanians have been in the EU for 7 years and our borders open to them. How do we cope with even more immigration?
Thank you. Godfrey Bloom.
Well, we have a very serious problem, don't we, in immigration. We are the most crowded piece of real estate probably in the world, and we have a welfare system and a national health system which is extremely liberal, to say the least, in the way it distributes its largesse. UKIP said back, I think, almost 10 years ago that when the doors opened, an open-door immigration policy would probably bring in something like 500,000 immigrants. And the government of the day suggested it would be nearer 60,000. Of course, we were all wrong. It's been over 1 million. Now, you've got to understand that Romania and Bulgaria, the average national wage there is extremely small. And it will be seen, the United Kingdom will be seen as a wonderful opportunity for people to come and enjoy all the social security and all the national health benefits that we have in this country, which are significantly more than Eastern Europe. We do not control our own immigration policy. It's a European Union dynamic, and this is one of the reasons that the United Kingdom Independence Party wants to get self-government back so we can control our own borders. In a year's time, this is going to be an extremely serious problem, and the government, the minister, even yesterday, the Minister for Immigration would not tell us how many were expected in. It's going to be very, very difficult.
David in Wath, your reply.
I fully agree with what he's saying. And, the government, well, the last 2 or 3 governments, they've just completely failed on the borders of this country. I mean, I've nothing against people that are here legally, but the number of illegal immigrants, we don't know how many there are. Is there anything in the UKIP manifesto, for want of probably a better word, that will help sort this problem out?
Godfrey Bloom?
For the benefit of the whole people of this country.
Yes, we believe that we should have a very strict immigration policy which is based on economics. It's not based on colour, it's not based on race. It's not based on ethnicity. What we actually believe is that we are too full. Now, what we are saying is, if we need dentists, if we need engineers, if we need people to come in from other parts of the world, they must apply for a work permit. we will grant a work permit, and they'll be extremely welcome if we need those people to come in. And this is just the same as South Africa, Australia, New Zealand and Canada and America run their immigration policies. What we simply cannot do is have an open door policy. If you go in the morning, if you leave your house at 9 o'clock in the morning to go to work, you do not leave your door open. And somebody in the evening knocks on your door, you open the door and you look to see who it is who's coming in. You do not leave your door open 24 hours a day, and as a country that's what we've done, and it's been simply been a disaster.
BBC Radio Sheffield, I'm talking to Godfrey Bloom, you're talking to him as well, in the Hot Seat on Hot Seat Friday. Any of the issues you care to talk about that we've mentioned already, including that, or any of the other things that have been said in the last 40 minutes, or any topics you think we haven't talked about and ought to be talking about? 81333 is the text number. 0114, we started with Sheffield. 0114 279 6699 when you phone, or you can get in touch in the usual ways. Question to do with Rotherham and the Rotherham by-election, in which UKIP did very, very well, as you've pointed out. At the end of last year, the UKIP leader Nigel Farage said that he would be taking legal action against Rotherham Council over the fostering row. Is that still the case, Mr. Bloom?
Yes, it is, and I hope you won't mind if I don't comment on it, because that is the matter of judicial procedure, and I think it would be in nobody's interest for me to discuss that here this morning.
But he's continuing to take the legal action.
Yes, indeed.
That's the answer to the question. Peter in Wakefield. Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your question?
It's a funny question. I'm thinking of considering joining UKIP, right? But I've tried to email or Twitter Nigel Farage about 5 or 6 times. My worry is that some of the policies I like, but that might need tweaking, just like you mentioned the immigration there. I don't think I got it quite right. But I'm worried that even though Nigel Farage is an excellent speaker, he comes across concisely and he doesn't kind of mess around and gives you a straight answer. That's great. But I'm wondering if it's a one-trick pony.
What's the one trick? Nigel Farage himself?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you've got Mr. Bloom there. He's a wee bit of a horse of a different colour. He does drop the ball now and then. He's what we don't want to do is get into a situation where, something happens and the whole party implodes.
Just say any more if you can. Mr. Bloom drops the ball now and again.
No, you were speaking earlier on about things that has happened in the past. You say it's only happened a couple of times. Well, I'm just saying, I'm not having a go, but what I'm saying is we need more characters, more people in UKIP, apart from the 2 or 3 people we've heard of.
Thank you. Godfrey Bloom.
Well, we've got a lot of expertise in UKIP. We've got Stuart Agnew, who's an expert on agriculture. We have Professor Timothy Congdon, who's our economic spokesman, who has got a CBE for services to the to previous administrations. We have Roger Helmer, who's an acknowledged expert on energy. There's lots of us. The thing is, you probably only know 2 or 3, but that tells you more about British television than it tells you about UKIP.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to move on, if I may. Kevin is in Barnsley. Kevin, your question.
My question, firstly, the chap sounds like a Tory, talks like a Tory. I'm interested to know how long has he been in UKIP and what were his political affiliations before he was in UKIP?
Godfrey Bloom.
A fair question. I have never been a member of any political party until I joined UKIP. I'm a professional financial economist. I didn't come into politics until 8 years ago because I got fed up with moaning in the pub. I hope I don't sound like a Tory because most of them are complete morons.
Come back, Kevin.
I find it interesting that having spent certain money, he seems to enjoy these pubs, doesn't he?
I couldn't possibly comment. Would you like to comment, Godfrey Bloom? Do you enjoy these pubs?
I'm very partial to a sherbet, as everybody knows, and I make no apology for it.
Well, I'm glad that you're sober at the moment.
Thank you. Well, it's not 12 o'clock yet, Peter.
No. Could I recommend Alcoholics Anonymous to you? It might,
Are you serious in what you're saying, Kevin?
I'm perfectly serious.
And when you say he sounds like a Tory, do you mean he sounds posh, or do you mean his politics sound Tory?
Well, his politics, and he sounds posh. So we've discussed his political background, which is note. Perhaps we can discuss his educational background.
Yeah, OK. What's your educational background, Mr. Bloom?
Well, I'm just a sort of baby boomer. I went to a London grammar school. I'm a graduate of the Royal College of Defence Studies. I'm a graduate of the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. I was a soldier for a while. I was quite a successful financial economist. I won international prizes. I'm vice president of the rugby club, president of the cricket club, and generally just an ordinary bloke, really.
Kevin?
Well, ordinary blokes know a little bit more about working class than you do, my love. And you've managed in the past 40 minutes to not discuss cuts and its effect on ordinary people. You've said note about the health service and...
I haven't been asked.
Well, I'm telling you...
I haven't been asked these questions.
Well, you found every opportunity to talk about common market, which, as far as I'm concerned, is an absolute nonsense. At the end of the day, I'm glad. The one thing that's happened in common market is that we've had no world wars with our former European people that we've been involved in wars with.
Kevin, thank you very much. I'm going to move on, if I may. Terry in Healy's got a message saying, we're in debt apparently, but who are we in debt to? And why don't we all get together and say we're not paying? Godfrey Bloom.
Well, you've got a very good point there. One of the problems that we have in this country, and North America has it, and indeed Europe has it, and that is the central banks. The central banks actually create the debt to start with, because they underwrite and create the artificially low interest rates and credit booms, which are carried out by the retail banks. Now, the retail banks misallocated money far too much to the tune of billions and billions, and then went broke. And instead of them being allowed to go broke, the government stepped in, and this is true of North America as well as the United Kingdom and Ireland, and made the taxpayer pick up the debt for the banks. The banks should have been allowed to go broke. They should have been allowed to go bust, and indeed, I'll go further, some of the bankers should have been sent to prison.
There's a question that's come in by text that says this. Ronnie, please ask Godfrey, what do you think is the best thing about being in the European community, and what will the UK miss the most if we leave it? What's the best thing about the European community?
There's only one good thing. There's only one thing that we get that we couldn't have without a free trade. We can have a free trade agreement. We don't need political union. But there is one good thing. There's only one good thing I like, and that is something called the Erasmus scheme, which is a completely interchangeable idea between students of all universities across Europe, and that's a good thing, and I'm in favour of that.
Thank you. A couple of questions about, I suppose, gender and related sexual matters always thrills people in the middle of the morning. Well, UKIP on gay marriage and UKIP on women. You said some things about women that got you into Coppet a bit of time ago, suggesting women should stay at the stove and cook your dinner and things.
A masterpiece of misreporting and misquoting.
What did you actually say?
What I actually said was and some of the press cut this out, but they put it back in a few days later when they realised what I'd actually said, and which has now received wisdom, that some of the employment legislation that we have is so draconian when it comes to things like maternity benefits, that what the effect that is having is employers, particularly small employers, which dominate most of the economy in this country, will not recruit women of childbearing age. And I think that's a terrible shame. I think our small companies, medium-sized businesses, need more young women, and what politicians have done, they've actually made it extremely difficult for that to happen.
Didn't you say something like no sensible employer would employ a woman of childbearing age?
Yes, I did. I said that, but the beginning. Hey, come on, let's get this right. What I said was
that's why you're here.
Under the current employment legislations, and it's wonderful how political opponents clip the end bit off. So let's get the whole quote together.
Give us that whole quote so we know what it is.
Yes. Unless we change employment legislation from being so draconian when it comes to maternity legislation, small companies will continue to shun the employment of young women. Full stop.
He's pointing his finger at me, folks. I looked at the Twitter feed for Godfrey Bloom. It said this: he's described as urbane, witty, well-informed and sensitive, even as he punches your lights out. He's poking at me. Help me, folks, will you? Will you tell me about gay marriage and gay sex? Your party's had a bit of trouble with this recently.
Well, I don't see that it's really had any trouble.
Have you sacked your youth leader?
We sacked him because there was irregularities in the election procedure.
I thought he was saying things about how gay marriage was all right and you lot don't believe in it.
That is also true, but that's not the reason he was sacked, if you want my opinion.
Where do you stand on gay marriage?
I think it's ludicrous and absurd.
Where do you stand on gay sex?
That's as a libertarian. People do whatever they like behind closed doors.
Why can't people get married if you're a libertarian? Why can't they get married if they want to? If you don't want to, don't marry a gay man.
Look, I think marriage is broadly speaking a relationship in every religion. It offends a lot of our Muslim members, this concept, and I believe that the civil partnership makes it perfectly fair for people if they want to have a civil partnership.
You slip that one in. A lot of our Muslim members. How many have you got in UKIP?
Growing every day. I couldn't
10,
tell
20,
you.
30?
I think it's over 100 now.
Really?
Yes.
Out of how many?
I couldn't tell you what the latest...
20,000, 5,000, 50?
Probably something like that.
Which one of those, though? Don't you know how many people are in your party?
God, it's going every day,
Yeah, but what was it
Rony.
yesterday,
Every
then?
single day.
What was it yesterday?
I've no idea. 25,000 perhaps?
I'm surprised you don't look it up every now and again.
I'm not really interested, Rony.
Are you not?
Not really, no.
You wouldn't interested in the fact that your party might be growing and might become a serious
All I do is I know it's growing. What I don't much care about is how many numbers it was yesterday, the day before, or how many Muslims, or how many Sikhs, or how many blacks, because we're not a greatest
party. But you
party.
know why I'm asking that question, because you have been accused of being BNP light. I think the Prime Minister David Cameron called you closet racist. It would be very important to know if there were any serious numbers of people of different ethnic backgrounds and different colours, and it might help you explain that you're not a racist party. So I ask a legitimate question. You slipped in the Muslims, so I wonder how many Muslims there are. 5 in Barnsley, maybe? I don't know how many.
Let me tell you, we had...
You're all white men at the top of your party, as far as I could see.
Yeah, we're not unlike any other parties on that basis, are we? No, what we've got is a growing number, because our Commonwealth policy, we have a Commonwealth free trade policy, and we want to promote Commonwealth free trade. So we have had candidates at Westminster in the 2010 elections of every ethnic background that you could possibly think of. Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, West Indian, Jewish, the lot. And that's just a matter of record. Have I got the names off the top of my head? No, I haven't.
You haven't got the numbers either, which is what I was asking for.
No, sorry, I don't have them.
Steve the Owl's asked this question. What's UKIP's stance on sending foreign aid abroad?
I would have some of our government actually arraigned for this. I think this is positively treasonous. We are sending £25 million a day abroad to countries like Argentina, China, India, who have GDP growth at more than ours. It's absolutely scandalous. When we're borrowing money, we're reducing police budgets by 20%. We're cutting our defence budget. We've made 5,000 soldiers redundant just in the last few days, and we're sending £25 million a day abroad. Scandalous.
UKIP's policy is to increase the amount of money on spending, isn't it? On defence spending?
No.
On defence spending.
No,
Sorry, I put the question wrong. I read it this morning on the UKIP pages. I went on the website. That's
I'm the
policy.
Spokesman for defence, and we may not have
spend
changed...
more money on it.
No. What we can do... I'm the defence spokesman.
Okay.
So you're getting straight
listeners can judge it. I'm talking to you.
Okay.
You're telling us. If people want to go on the website, I read it this morning.
Right. Okay, I can tell you what we can do. The budget is perfectly adequate. What we need to do is change procurement. What we need to do is to disestablish the Ministry of Defence, which is not fit for purpose, and that would leave the sort of money that we need to actually keep our soldiers and sailors and people on the front end doing the job that they're supposed to be doing.
Godfrey Bloom is in the hot seat, 6 minutes to 12. Mark has been in touch by email with this question. I've heard a lot about immigration, etc. I run a small business based in Doncaster. What are UKIP's policy on business, i.e. VAT?
Well, here's a classic case in point. 20% of VAT is absolutely crippling our retail industry, as we see every day. But while we continue to send £40 million a day to the EU, £25 million a day to overseas aid, £12 billion a year to bogus charities, £60 billion a year to quangos, we can't reduce the VAT. That's what's soaking up the taxation. And of course, what we could do if we didn't do that, we could halve business rates and we could bring VAT back down to 5%. That's that's what we could do.
Godfrey Bloom's in the studio. Fred's in Low Edges with this question. He's 60 years old. He's struggling with finding a job. He's made over 500 job applications. He thinks it's because of age discrimination. The online applications he's made have asked for his age. He says it's illegal, but it seems to be mandatory. He can't get legal aid to take it up. Where do you stand on age discrimination and what might be done for Fred in Low Edges? Godfrey Bloom.
Well, I don't believe in any discrimination. I think discrimination on age is wrong, and I think it's stupid. And I can't understand why any employer wouldn't want to take advantage of somebody with a good working track record and all that experience. But employers are employers. But I would argue that that's a very stupid policy on behalf of whoever to whom you are applying for a job.
No one's managed to get a question through on climate change this morning, whether it's of no concern or whether it's been we've been overwhelmed by other things. Let me ask you about your party's view. You don't believe that the climate is being changed because of CO2 emissions, and you think... Well, you tell me, what's the party's view about the climate?
Well, one thing we know for certain now, all the international scientific institutes on the globe have said that we have not had global warming now since 1995. Of that, there is no scientific dispute. So what we're saying is we know that man-made CO2 emissions have significantly increased since 1995. So the hypothesis that man-made CO2 emissions create apocryphal global warming is clearly flawed, and we think we should have a Royal Commission to look into it and work out exactly what is happening, because clearly what we've been told was going to happen hasn't happened and doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Climate change isn't happening.
No, climate change happens all the time, and it has done for 8,000, 10,000 years.
Tom's in Stannington. Tom, your question.
Good morning. It's your statement that the banks should have been allowed to collapse. Now, he said he was a financial person, that was his job. He would have realised that this would have meant the whole financial system of the world would have collapsed. Now, the government's bailed out these banks, which we still partly own, to save companies going bust and to save tens of thousands, if not millions, of jobs. They are economic facts that you can't refute.
Thank you. Godfrey Bloom.
Yeah, I do refute them. That is a great story put down by overpaid fat cat bankers that they were too big to fail.
No.
I do this for a living, old son. I do this for a living.
You're preaching headache economics, aren't you?
No, I'm telling it how it is after 35 years' experience in financial services.
Everything to sort itself out.
No, I'm sorry, I just don't agree with you. We'll never agree.
I know
you've been ripped off. The people have been ripped off to say fat cat bankers. More fool you for believing it.
We're always being ripped off by fat bankers. That's why the workers are paying for it. We pay more of our income as a percentage, and we are being hammered left, right and centre, and you know it.
And when left, right, this is Rony here, Tom. Left, right and...
You just blame everything on somebody else, whether they come from another part of the world or somewhere in this country.
So your view of what you've been hearing for the last hour from Godfrey Bloom, MEP, the UKIP man, is what, Tom?
I think his economics are free marketeer. Let the market sort itself out. Take no responsibility of the consequences of what they're doing.
Yes, and are you surprised by anything you've heard this morning in the last hour, Tom?
No, well, I'm a bit... I think there's an economist called Haddock, and I think he's following his philosophy on economics. We've got three major economic philosophers. There's Haddock, there's Keynesian, and there's Marxism.
Okay,
and
Tom, which one are you?
I'm Marxist.
Thanks, Tom in Stannington, and Marxist in Stannington. They're pretty rare around the place. Godfrey Bloom, you're pretty rare as well. Thank you so much for coming in. Has it been an enjoyable experience to be in the hot seat?
A great pleasure and honour to be invited.
Good. And what was the moment when you thought, my God, I'm in for it now?
I think when I had to tackle the German first off, actually. I haven't spoken German since I was in the army a long time ago.
It's been the hot seat on BBC Radio Sheffield. In it has been Godfrey Bloom, the MEP and the UKIP man. If you want to ask him questions, well, you'll have to go to a meeting because you're too late to catch him here. It's coming up for 12 o'clock.